PJ Facts. PJ Facts.
Ruanga, the Constitutional Commission. Then later on, there was the war in Rwanda, which took a bit of our time. Then I became military assistant to the president, and later on, IGP, Inspector General of Police. Now, I'm giving you that context so that I'm able to now zero down on how our interaction. Now, the closest, okay, we used to interact in all this. We used to interact. And when he became, with him, remember, he was, if you've researched, he became IO of PGB. So he was working in the State House, but that was before I went to State House. Then later on, I think he went for a course. When he came back, he was appointed commander, mechanized brigade. Then and then later on, of course, he became the CDF.
When you were CDF, where were you? Did you interact?
I was CPC. I was Chief Political Commissar. I think somewhere in between, in that time. And we worked very closely together, actually. That's one of the most, in terms of working relationship or working record, that was one of, what was the first close, because he was my boss as the CDF, and he was committed to political work. He supported, just like obviously the president, and because, as you know, UPDF, NRA, UPDF, one of the building blocks is political education, and he put a lot of emphasis on political education, the ideological orientation of the force, the question of welfare, which was under the commissariat, even general political work in the units, he supported us. Actually, under his tenure, what distinguishes his tenure, I think, from earlier ones, was his commitment to building an ideologically conscious soldier and therefore force, so that a soldier is motivated more out of ideological conviction than money. Because by the way, that's the legacy or the strength of NRA from the bush. That's how we're oriented. And then even I think talk about him and myself and others with the same thinking. Our motivation of going to the bush was not personal. It was to make a difference in our country. Maybe you could call it patriotic inclinations. And so when he took charge, I saw a difference, because I had been CPC under earlier commanders, but I saw a genuine commitment and effort to invest in the political consciousness of the soldier, and therefore the importance of the commissariat. The other, I think, major achievement that we made was addressing the family welfare. You see, in the military, in the UPDF, the NRA, now UPDF, we distinguish between welfare at work, in other words, the entitlements, salary, uniform, the facilities that you need to perform your work. from family welfare. That is welfare at home. Now, obviously, the two are equally important. They are they are not mutually exclusive. They mutually reinforce each other. Because if a soldier doesn't have pressures from home, it will make him perform better when fighting at the battlefront. So he put equal emphasis, more than any earlier efforts, to building, to improving the family welfare. Now, remember, we're working in conditions of difficulty in terms of government revenue and other resources. So we had to look for, we had to be innovative, we had to be creative, and think out of the box, see how can we use things like Saccos, the Sacco strategy, the cooperative strategy. Actually, the cooperative strategy. I remember we had earlier with Brigadier Kayanja visited, supported by the International Cooperative Alliance, visited some militaries in Southern Africa, Zambia, Malawi, to see how they took us to countries where they had made, I think, a difference. We visited them to see how they had used the cooperative strategy to improve the welfare, the family welfare, basically, of the soldiers. And then later on, when Gen Aronda became CDF, I remember introducing him to. I told him of this, and of course he also knew it. And we now explored how do we use that strategy, since we don't have enough budget, because the budget was obviously concentrated on building the operational capacity of the UPDF. So now, how do we do that at the same time address the morale, especially the morale and the motivation of the soldier, cushioning him from the pressures? Because remember, these young soldiers, unlike us who were volunteers, we didn't have families, within the bush, or even slightly after the bush. So there were not many pressures. But these young soldiers, many of them were starting to acquire families, and therefore the pressures, apart from the extended family, the relatives, the what, who expect, oh, you are in government, so you have money, you have resources. So that's how we came up with the Wasarendo Sacco. I can say without bragging that really this was our baby, Gen Aronda and myself. Of course, supported by His Excellency the President as the Commander-in-Chief. It was not easy to persuade soldiers because naturally they were mistrustful to start saving, fearing that their money would be eaten. There was mistrust of the officers with the higher ranks. So they thought initially that, oh, these big men want to eat our money. So we really went on a campaign. And I really want to applaud his leadership, because it was his committed leadership. I remember a watershed, I could call it a watershed meeting we had of the staff and command in Gulu, where really, had it gone otherwise, Wasarendo would never have been born. Because that was, staff and command was really, it was a committee composed of field commanders and staff of the headquarters, like ourselves, from the commissariat. But in this way, the commissariat was in the lead. Now, there was a debate. At that time, there was a salary earners scheme, which was touted by the commercial banks, and many of us were on it, in fact. Which basically, okay, it was relief a bit, but it was to the advantage of the banks because the charges, the interest rate, and so on. However, when we came up with this, when we got this idea of the Sacco and then proposed it, we thought we should propose it as an alternative to salary earner scheme. And we had a really heated debate, and the meeting was divided. I remember a man called Omara. I think I'm told now he's an MP. He represented, I think Paul Omara is. That time he was working for Stanby and was managing that program of salary earner scheme. So it ended up being a debate between me and him before the staff of the command. And I can never forget that. And of course, Gen Aronda was the chairman and was moderating. And really the meeting was divided until towards the end, somebody gave me information, I will not disclose who, that in fact, while Stanby was insisting on this, was selling to us this program of that scheme, they themselves have got a Sacco for their staff. So when I got that information, I put it in the debate, I put it to Omar. I said, but Omar, you are pushing this. If it is so good, why is it that you also have a Sacco you prefer a Sacco for the workers and not the salary, that scheme you want us to continue with? So that then, of course, it was new information. And thanks to the stewardship of Gen Aronda, the staff and the command took the decision that we should now go for this option of establishing a Sacco in UPDF. But we had, after that, we had now to go around the units, explaining what it is, and that fell on, by the way, not just the commissars. You see, what made it possible was that command took it over. And that was because of General Aronda's leadership. He insisted that don't leave it to your commissars to explain to soldiers. You yourself explain to them. Because you see, with the cooperative strategy, it's not about ordering, that we are giving orders, which is the way we operate in the military. This you have to persuade, because somebody is parting with his statutory payment, which is his salary, part of it, to save. But obviously, we have to convince them that it is for their benefit and the benefit of their families. So I'm glad that by the time I left, I was reassigned to the police. The Wasarendo Sacco had been established, and I was the first chairman elected to steer the Sacco in those formative years. And it should be one of Gen Aronda's legacies, actually, the legacy of his leadership, because the Wasarendo Sacco is the most successful Sacco in the country. It's the biggest Sacco. It could actually be a bank. I've been, the last time when we had the annual general meeting, I wanted to propose it, and I will still, if I'm given an opportunity, to propose it, because there's no reason why it cannot be a bank giving concessionary loans, because that was its, you see, a Sacco, and I really want, and I would want to use this opportunity to urge the leadership, and since this is internal, nobody would accuse me that I'm the leadership, the current leadership of the UPDF, and the leadership of Wasarendo Sacco specifically, not to deviate from the original objectives of establishing the Sacco, to avail soldiers with the concessionary financing for income-generating projects, which will improve the household income, as opposed to commercial banks. Commercial banks, obviously, their objective is to make profit, not welfare of their depositors. Yes, obviously, the management of the Sacco must ensure that the money is safe. But they must also not become another commercial bank. And to me, the measure of its success must not simply be that they have generated more, they have got more deposits, they have generated more profits from investing those deposits. It must be how many families of the soldiers have they lifted out of poverty? Have they helped to generate household income to solve their basic problems, whether it is shelter, or home ownership, financial base, because basically that's what you need, financial base. If I'm fighting and I know that my family is covered, I give my all. I give my all. Because I know that my family, my wife, my children will be catered for. And that was the objective. So as we remember Gen Aronda, let us really review how Wasarendo Sacco is being managed and whether we have deviated from the objectives, which, by the way, is the objectives of the cooperative strategy. Because if you remember, the cooperative movement emerged as a kind of counter or as a reaction to the predatory character of the capitalist system, capitalist banking, which unfortunately is what we have in the country. I'm not afraid to say that, because I'm a victim of it. Yeah. But I see, really, I see that we seem to be and it's not necessary. This Wasarendo should not be measured in terms of how much profits we have made. It should be profits. That should be the nani. It should be the welfare of the soldiers and their families. How much have we done to generate income-generating projects, which kind of cushion them from these pressures that will affect their morale at the battlefield. I don't know whether I make my...
Very much.
Yeah.
So, General, that's quite elaborate.
Then much about there are many accomplishments, operational accomplishments, like fighting coin. Again, I worked closely with him, as I did with the late General Kazini, who was CDF, I believe, before him. In hunting down coin, I had the privilege of the president assigning, when I was a military assistant, assigning me as a special envoy when coin had crossed the Tolit-Juba road and was hiding in a place called Bininyang. And I was assigned to go to, in 2004, this was 2004, to go to Khartoum and coordinate, and then later go to Juba to coordinate with the Sudanese army, to coordinate UPDF with the Sudanese army to hunt down Kony and flush him out of Birinyang if not capture him. So that during that time I worked closely with Gen Aronda. Although we almost did capture him, but he escaped by a whisker. But he never recovered from that operation, and he was hunted down until later on there was Operation Iron Fist, which you remember was commanded by the now CDF General Muhoozi. And then the man fled, I think, further on to Central Africa. The rest I don't want to. But yeah, so those are some of the operational areas. The other areas we worked with when I was IGP was when he was still CDF, was fighting terrorism, but more the rioting by these anarchist sections of the opposition. Not all the opposition, by the way. I believe most of them were law-abiding because I worked with them very closely. But there was a section which really wanted chaos. It was, I always call it, you know, there is, you may not know, but let me interest you so that you read it. There was a military philosopher called Clausewitz who wrote a book on war and said that war is politics by other means. Now, there is a section of the political opposition which during my tenure especially, believed that politics is war by other means. So, and Shira, you used to cover all this, and then you'd hit me that I'm the problem. But I wasn't the problem. The problem was this section which believed that, you know, politics is warfare. And you saw, my comrade, I should call him comrade because he seems to be my comrade when he started these funny hymns. Dr. Besigi, Colonel Dr. Besigi. You know, he would provoke situations, great situations, park in the middle of the road in a busy part of downtown, just to provoke us into confrontation. And you remember those, I can't go into that. That's a different story. If you want me to talk about it, you can. But the most important thing is that without the support of the military, the police was too weak to have handled those situations. And I really want to thank and applaud Gen Aronda. And by the way, in the same breath, now General Muhoozi, who was in charge of SFC, who I worked very, very closely for helping the police manage those riotous situations, the policing of elections, worked very closely and successfully, by the way. Then later on, he becomes my minister. Then we become, even in terms of working closely, he was my boss. But the good thing, he had been my boss as CDF. Now he's my boss as the minister, as my minister. He was not overbearing. He would give us, of course, leadership, advice, just like those before him and after him. By the way, I want to say this, I use this opportunity to express this, that all the ministers that I served under were never overbearing. They left me they gave me latitude to exercise discretion. And of course, the commander-in-chief, above all, who gave us latitude to make decisions, whether management or operational. So General Aronda did the same, was very supportive. I want to say that during his leadership as our minister, organized a very successful centenary celebrations and really built capacity of the police. Whatever anybody else may say, that's a record that you cannot rub away from us. We strive to build a team. There were challenges. He was never, although his focus as a minister was more to build systems like, the successful, the NIRA, the National ID project. Yeah. So there's no doubt that General Aronda, both as a cadre of the movement, of the NRA, as a commander, field commander, as an IO, that the military intelligence is there at the heart of the military in any country, and or as the top commander of the CDF, and later as minister. Of course, I can't talk about the work he did in parliament as a member of parliament, because I think he was quite activist in the background. I'm sure there are people who will talk about it, not me, but at least I know that he really, so in all that, he has definitely left an indelible mark on the history of our country. When he passed away, it was definitely a very huge loss. He was very young, and really at the prime of his leadership. And when the country still needed him.
So, John, thank you. I wanted to find out, as we conclude, two questions. One is on, there's going to be a memorial lecture for him, which the president said is crucial for people, for the country really, to recognize the efforts of the officers, not just the officers anyway, but people that have served this country. So I wanted to know your thoughts on that memorial lecture, but also what lessons do you take out of Gen Aronda's leadership that you think either the current leadership or even the youth can emulate?
Well, yeah, it is talking about such a subject almost off the cuff way is not being fair. Such a great man, a great cadre, and I would really request that, okay, I can give my thoughts as you say, but it needs a more, serious focus, because like in the military, we build based on lessons learned from experiences, early experiences, either of ourselves or of others, and learn from them. So as far as General Aronda is concerned, what I can say really is that he was highly committed to service and to making whether the systems of governance or the quality of life, but above all, on realizing the vision that took us to the bush in the first place. And he worked, tirelessly, gave his all. That's what I could see, because he worked day and night, gave his all. He never spared himself to that end. Whether that's what you call patriotism, that's your call. But for me, I'm just describing what I saw in him. Then he was a man who really wanted to get things done. And one distinguishing really unique characteristic in him from the earlier times, and what really made his success as CDF, and I believe later on even as the minister, he was really practical. He really wanted things done. And he got things done. And that's what I think, not just in the military, but I believe whoever wants to be a leader in this country at whatever level, that's what we must. Those are qualities that they must strive to build in themselves, to get things done. Whether it's at the LC1 level, or whether it's at ministerial level, that's something that is lacking. Whether at the personal level, and of course also putting service before self. Because a lot of the way I see the trend I see among the youthful leaders, it seems there's more of serving rather than serving the country. And Gen Aronda, one of his legacies must be that he demonstrated the fruitfulness of putting service before self.
PJ Facts.